This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Today, my guest is Kiki L'Italien. And Kiki, did I come anywhere close to pronouncing that right?
You did. You did. I mean, I'll answer to anything, but Kiki L'Italien, you nailed it.
Oh, good, good. I meant to ask you that before we started, and I just forgot.
It's way more fun just to wing it and see what happens.
Well, especially with today's topic, which is why weird is better. Now,
Yeah.
my followers know I embrace my quirky side. It shows in my product titles and the way I represent myself. I'm highly intuitive, but I love the science geeky and business side of things, which is for some people seems an odd combination. You, my dear, also like to embrace making weird acceptable and beautiful. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And before we get into your fast action tips, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I think the reason I'm drawn to weird is because, I'm multi-passionate. I have a lot of different things that I love and a lot of different things that I do. And so part of what I do is I focus on the nonprofit world in teaching marketing, social media strategy, things like that. Another part is I have an online community for the association industry. And then on top of that, total departure from all of it is that I'm a makeup artist, and I've been a makeup artist on the side as sort of a side hustle since I moved out to the Washington, D.C. region. And so for like 30 years I've been doing that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I have a few other little secrets, performance poetry and things like that I jump into. But in essence, I embrace the weird all throughout.
Which is great. And being someone who's involved in community theater, but you will not hear me singing. I take that back. You will hear me sing in a few things, but my characters are always off key because that's how they're built and that's how I sing. But I
Well,
also
that's nice that
started
it
in
works out that
community
way.
theater on the stage managing, makeup, costume design side of things. So I love that.
Yes.
You've got tips for us, multi-passionate people, which I think describes everyone that I know personally who follows me. We are all multi-passionate. I know very few people in my life who are single focused or maybe dual focused people. They have a business or career they love, and then they may have family or travel or something on the side. But it's now okay to say you're multi-passionate about things. And it's now okay to go embrace and do more than one thing at a time. There are still marketing and business income generation things that you have to be aware of. But
Mhm.
get us into the tips for embracing our weirdness and succeeding.
Yeah. So, I think that the reason why I think this is such an important topic to talk about is as of this recording, you and I are sitting here and we are experiencing all of the weirdness that is 2020, which has been definitely weird and not in the best kind of under like weight that we think about weird. It's more like the van down by the river and, not as much delight or anything like that. But one thing that's really become clear in a year like this one is how important it is for us to be able to adapt and change and be able to take on those different passions that we have so that we can survive. And I think that, in recent years and actually all throughout my life, there have been people who have, we can have mentors that work as positive influences or those who are sort of anti mentors and they work as examples of what not to do. And there have been people who I have listened to some extent about this idea of niching down throughout my life, and really felt a lot of pain and sort of struggle internally over, am I too spread out? Should I focus? And a lot of people who have told me periodically over the years, you really need to just focus on one thing. And 2020 has been such a great example of why that isn't for everyone. So I think that one of the most important things that I want to share with people about embracing your weird is that there is a time, there is a place for that. And if you feel like you have many different areas in which you have strengths and talents, and you feel drawn to exercise those, learn about those, and expand in those areas, I don't think that you should cut them out just so you can keep everything sort of clear in your mind or in your life. I think for branding purposes, absolutely, it's important to have a clear message for each line of business that you have. But oh my gosh, 2020 has been 2020. I mean, just to put it straight out there, while challenging, started out looking like it was going to be one of the most challenging years for me, as I saw 25% of my expected revenue drop because I was no longer able to travel and speak and give my workshops in person. But I've more than made up for it because I've been able to take things from other parts of my life and fit them in, and now have had a more profitable year than I expected. So I guess the message here is that, for those people who embrace their weird and who are not afraid to figure out how to make that work for them, I think it's one of the most important survival skills that we can have. So,
I,
yeah.
I agree with that. And I think for many of us, it serves to our advantage this year, just as you're pointing out. I've had those people in my past say, stick to one thing, really do it
Mhm.
well. Well, I did writing, and I did, wrote books, and I published, and I did corporate writing, and I was good at it, and it went really well, but there was always something missing. I did the
Mhm.
marketing side. Again, something was always missing. I went the spiritual woo-woo side for a while, and I was successful, and it went very well. But something was missing. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I embraced those things and found a way to bring them together for myself that I really began to rock my path and really enjoy doing that and helping others along. So I love the underlying message here. And when you say 2020, for anybody who may be listening to this in another year, 2020 is our year of the coronavirus, when it first hit big time here in the States and became a global pandemic that is of concern. And I don't know about you, but I've sat here and laughed sometimes at some of the corporate people who were just discovering online meetings and working from
Right.
home and all of these other things. And I'm going, my goodness, I've been doing this for 6 years or more, and we just continued on with what we were doing, where other
Yeah,
people
it's
were starting to tell people how to do that. And I'm thinking, okay, well,
yeah, I mean, it's good that we've been doing this because we can say, "Oh, this is going to help you." We can already help people, and it feels really good to do that. I think that with all of the challenges, of course, there are always, those silver linings. And I think, seeing so many people who are, when we are comfortable, it's very hard to grow. And I think that for much of the world, we've had the technology to have things like online meetings for so long, but no one was really pressed and really pushed to really explore and do as much with those as they could. And what we're seeing right now, there's a lot of frustration, and you see meeting planners and you see so many people who are really frustrated and saying it's not the same. And of course it's not the same. But you know what's exciting? What's exciting to me is I'm seeing people who are out there who are sharing which platforms come with, captioning already embedded, and which platforms are doing this, and which platforms make it easier to interact. And I think this is great. We have all of these different, technologies and solutions to help bring people closer together, to bring learning to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to go to some of these conferences and meetings. And we're making it so that the argument of, oh, we could never have a remote workforce, we could never facilitate these meetings, we have to be in person. Well, it turns out, no, we don't. It turns out we can actually do a lot of what we were doing, and make it available to more people. And so while the immediate hurt of change and of trying to figure out, in the association world, every association has an annual meeting. So there's a lot of crossover with the events industry in the association space. And a lot of associations, one of their primary revenue drivers is having these trade shows and in-person meetings. So these industries are really struggling right now. But you know what?
Exactly.
They actually, and there are going to be people who hear this and think maybe it sounds heartless, but we needed to change. We've moved away from, for membership associations, for years have been talking about being more like for profits and everything. And while it's good to understand how to use innovation so that you're constantly moving an industry forward, I think it's very important for nonprofits and associations specifically to figure out, what makes them different and why it's important not to just focus on profit, but to focus on what is it that where you're providing meaning for your members and for an industry. And so again, when you take out a large source of revenue, it forces people to think about, okay, we need to take another look at what makes us different from every other organization out there, every for-profit out there. And so I do think we're going to see a lot of growth as a result, sort of as a silver lining, but unfortunately it's causing a lot of pain for right now.
It's causing pain, but the other thing I'm seeing is that companies, whether they're nonprofits, which I have headed up in the past and I'm certainly involved with currently, and profit businesses, it's forced them to trust their employees a little bit more because they don't have as much control over them if they're working from home. So that's
Yeah.
another layer of this whole thing that we have to do. Another thing of this weirdness
Mm-hmm.
that's forced us into. And I think for some people, they were able to drop the mask they had to wear at the corporate job and embrace more of who they are, and yet still get their corporate work done. But there's
Yes.
more leeway and initial trust, hopefully, for a lot of them. I know it's true for the people I've talked to. Their companies have seen, oh, I can trust you to get your work done, even though, I don't have control of you 9 to 5.
Massive change. I mean, it's even at my husband's company, they are going to it's changing the way that people look at the options for work. And he worked with, one of his best friends is the CEO of the company where he works. And for years, that guy was saying, we can't have a remote workforce because it will ruin our corporate culture. And turns out it's not true. And so now, as a result of it, my husband and I were getting ready to move our family to another state because he doesn't have to go in all the time. We're going to be closer to, his parents, be closer to family. because it turns out we don't have to live right there. We can live anywhere, and he can do the job that he needs to do and come in occasionally.
Mhm.
And I think that these things are really good. And in this way, we can look at, it's certainly been weird. We've all been put in weird circumstances. But again, when you embrace the weird, you oftentimes find that there are other ways to do things that you simply ruled out because you created these false constraints. And I say you, but I mean really all of us. We create these rules for ourselves, and sometimes they help us, but sometimes they hurt us. And so, I like to look to philosophy actually for, reminders of ways that we can look at life and look at sort of the constructs that we set up for ourselves to get a little bit of motivation. And, one person, Socrates, we know about the Socratic method. He's always such an influence and sort of motivator to constantly ask, why do I feel the way that I do about this? Is this still true for me? How do I really feel about this thing, and why? And I think that, when we're able to ask ourselves these questions and inquire a little bit, more deeply, oftentimes we'll find that what once was true may be no longer true. And
Mhm.
we change. As humans, hopefully we do change. Hopefully, we're able to constantly grow and discover new things about ourselves. But that whole concept of sort of cutting out and ignoring different pieces of your life so that you can, you know, basically sell better in one area of your life. If you aren't motivated by money by itself, that's never going to work for you. So you have to find something else so that you can move forward in a way where you're inspired and you're becoming profitable. And I think that for far too long, I thought I had to fit into a framework. And what ended up working for me was embracing the weird, was not cutting out all of these other aspects that didn't fit in a neat package, but like figuring out how to work with all of them.
That's a great segue into talking about the free resource you have for the
Mm,
viewers and listeners. And I'm going to take a moment and actually say the title of this because I think it's
okay.
cool. And it also demonstrates that you have embraced in this free resource, or demonstrated in this free resource, melding a couple of your passionate sides. So
Hmm.
here's the free resource that you can get that's associated with today's episode: how to be weird and look good doing it. And I
Yes.
must say that sometimes when I'm embracing my weird, I'm not so good looking good doing it.
Yeah, I think that for a lot of us, that when we're embracing our weird, there's the awkwardness, there's the messiness, there's the, even if you're looking at branding, there's it's because there are messy lines. You don't see the templates out there because it doesn't exist, because it's weird. It's your version of weird. And I think what I've always been drawn to, whether it is in social media or whether it's in makeup or whether it's in home decor or whatever you look at, I think the one thing I've always, or even life, been really good at is taking messy things and just cleaning up the edges. And I think that when we look at embracing our weird, sometimes just simply, cleaning up the edges and figuring out how to sort of bring everything together enough so that it's easier for someone else to perceive and take in. It's not you don't have to be so perfect that it's all throughout, and every you connect all the dots and everything is perfect. It's more about just cleaning up the edges. And I think that when you are able to pull those things together, life can just run much more smoothly for you because you don't get so much pushback. You don't have so many people arguing with you about how you are too scattered and messy and they don't understand. It's just a matter of sort of tidying things up around the edges and helping it to become a little bit more understandable for people who are taking it in from the outside. And
Yeah,
it makes you feel better too. So,
even for those of us who like to color outside the lines,
mm-hmm.
our edges
Yeah.
can be a little smoother and a little
Yes.
more colorful and a little more by design, by our choice. So as we wrap down, we've got just a couple minutes. What is the one thing most important? Is it accepting that we can embrace our weirdness, or is it something else?
I think the first thing you need to think about is not discounting or painting yourself into a false image of who you are. And that is the most important thing, because who we decide that we are. I like red lipstick. I love horror movies. I don't like silly comedies. I'm not into. We create these rules and these structures for who we are or who we aren't, and those things can change. I once said that I was the kind of person that would only run if a zombie were chasing me. And then years later, I discovered that actually, it was really important for me to move and to move my body, and that walking and even running, I did a half marathon and I had never been a runner. And it was just because, sometimes it's time for us to let things go and to maybe question why we're holding on so fast to those things that we say that we are or are not.
Oh, that's a great closing statement. I love that. Well, I want to thank you again for spending this time with me today. And for those watching, look down in the description down in either the blog post, or if you're watching this on YouTube, in the description. If you're listening to this somewhere else, make sure to go to rockingyourpath.com and look up that blog post, where you will find out more about Kiki, including our popular section, Fun and Unusual Facts about our guests, and also the way to get her free resource, How to Be Weird and Look Good Doing It.
There you go.
Well, this is Kat Sturtz closing another episode of Fast Action Friday. I want to remind you to join me next week when I will have another great guest. Until then, remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye-bye.